100 sailing ships from 13 different nations. 2,000 young crew members. A race every year in different parts of the world. Often as many as 1 million spectators. Sailing ships varying in size from 24 tons to 3,000 tons. Royalty to inspect the ships and start the races. Young crews aged between 16 and 25 from all over the world. Some of the young crews may only have been on board for a matter of hours. The tall ships, exciting if you're lucky enough to see them at sea under sail, and equally exciting if you see them in harbour. Built to carry cargoes all around the world, their modern use is often to take young people to sea, both amateur and professional. These ships are taking part in one of the annual Cutty Sark tall ships races. Some of the young crew working out on the bowsprit of Royalist. But what are the tall ships about for young people? Here's race official Hugh Marriott.
They're about adventure, I think, is probably the truest way of explaining it. They're about people who know nothing about the sea and who normally would have no chance of ever finding out anything about the sea, and they get aboard these tall ships and they just have the most amazing voyage of discovery into themselves and into the sea and into other countries and into other people from other countries, and they come back completely different. They come back changed. They found out about themselves and a bit about the world, and it's very rare to find somebody who didn't get something magic out of it.
This is Iskra, a ship belonging to the Polish Navy. She's a barkentine, and incidentally is one of 3 sisters. Another Polish ship, Pogoria, and a Bulgarian ship, Kaliakra. The 3 were designed by a famous Polish marine architect, Zygmunt Chorin. They're 165 foot long, together with a bowsprit, and they carry 45 cadets, plus the permanent crew to instruct them. This is the Gaff Ketch Greater Manchester Challenge. The OYC on her sail shows that she belongs to the Ocean Youth Club, and they have sail training yachts stationed all around the British Isles, which gives many young people the chance to experience offshore sailing. She's a small Class C yacht, but on the square-rigged ships, one of the first things that the crew have to become accustomed to is working aloft, from 60 to as high as 160 feet above the deck. The youngsters go aloft to prepare to set sail. Others will be below cooking. They have to steer the ship, keep lookout, clean the ship, and so on. And the youngsters will now climb the ratlins, as they're called, the rope ladders, and go out to the foot ropes, out onto those huge spars which are called yards. And once there, they will loosen the gaskets, those tapes which are binding the sail up to the yard. They loose them, which allows the sail to flop down and be set from the deck. And this is the splendid result, how a square rigger looks once all her sails are set. Have a look at the complexity and the large number of crew in this much bigger ship, Darmojeji, which incidentally is in the middle of a tacking manoeuvre, as you can see by the fact that the squaresails on the foremast are backed. When the tack is finished, she looks like this, sailing along well on the port tack. And she gives you an idea of the power involved with these giant square riggers, which can have as much as an acre of sail. On this particular year, the Cutty Sark Tall Ships race starts from Milford Haven in Wales, a vast natural harbour. And it was here that the ships gathered for the start of their race. This is a tremendous international gathering with ships from all over the world. Morning Star of Revelation made of concrete. And here is Loki, all the way from Finland. These visits to the ports give an opportunity for many people, in some cases literally millions of people, to enjoy the spectacle of the ships and the chance to see the youngsters at work and the general air of festivity. At the same time, there's a need for quite a lot of training, because this is quite a dangerous event for the young people, but even training can be fun. And by the end of this exercise, they will certainly know how to man their lifeboat. Spectators come in all shapes, sizes and states of mind. Very often the visitors can be numbered in tens of thousands. They always enjoy the ships and the activities of the crew. The yellow pennants indicate the number of times a yacht's taken part in any one of these races. Never mind, lad. One day you'll be a crew member. In the fleet was Jens Krogh from Denmark, a previous winner of the Cutty Sark Trophy, which is a rather special trophy. The Ocean Youth Club had 4 boats in this race. They have 12 altogether spread around the country. And this might mean an opportunity for you to take part in this sort of training. In addition to the very many visitors, often the fleet is honoured by a visit from a member of the royal family. This time it was to be His Royal Highness, the Duke of York, who had arrived only 1 hour before on board the Royal Yacht Britannia, which the next day would start the race. Here he is, meeting the crew of the Russian yacht, Rus. The Southern Irish yacht, Moonduster, owned by Dennis Doyle, a very well-known ocean racing man. And you can see that not all the training ships are old in tradition. Down below, Moonduster is stripped out up forward and is quite a formidable racing machine. Mechanical waving, a tradition in tall ships, welcomes the Duke with exuberance. The bows of the frigate HMS Juno, guard ship to the Royal Yacht, and which would be marking one end of the starting line. The races are very lucky to have the support of navies throughout the world to provide communication and safety cover. These ships are part of the parade of sail. In the foreground is the bow of Malcolm Miller, one of the Sail Training Association's 2 topsail schooners. We saw the stern of Jens Krogh earlier in harbour. Here she is under sail, proudly flying the Danish flag as well as the red ensign, a courtesy because she's in British waters. The crew of the Malcolm Miller. On this occasion, Malcolm Miller had a crew of girls and her sister ship, the Sir Winston Churchill, a mixed crew. You can imagine that within the fleet there is some fierce competition. Behind the Malcolm Miller is the bow of the Dutch schooner Eendracht. Here's Astrid again. We're going to see more of Astrid and get some idea of the work that the young crew do on board her. She's just preparing to haul up her inflatable boat and get it snugged down, ready for being at sea. She flies the blue ensign because her captain is a member of the Royal Naval Reserve. You may think that her sails look very untidy there, but that is technically known as hanging in their gear. The gaskets have been loosed and they're ready for setting. A modern yacht, and one that I skipper each year, and still a training ship, Donald Searle belongs to the London Sailing Project to give London youngsters an opportunity for offshore sailing. She was built in 1979 and is an Ocean 75 ketch, but specially designed down below as a sail training ship. You can see she's got 3 of the race pennants, and in 1984 she sailed all the way to Quebec and back as part of that year's race. Although much smaller than many of the others, these are all still tall ships for the purposes of the race. As an Australian poster said in 1988, you don't have to be big to be tall. And furthermore, many of these young volunteer crew are going to sea for the first time, and the smaller the boat they go in, the rougher and tougher it is for them. The ensign of Era, being proudly flown by their brigantine Asgard II. You can see from her number of yellow pennants she's done many races. Indeed, she was in Australia in 1988 for their bicentennial. The Polish Navy ship Iskra, a barkentine. And behind her, the small brig Royalist. ORP Iskra, ORP being Polish for HMS, has a professional crew of future officers for the Polish Navy, whereas Royalist's crew are sea cadets. and these are youngsters who may or may not go on to join the Royal Navy. The crew of Windjammers, climbing the ratlins on their way aloft. This is virtually the whole crew, something like 220 cadets, climbing aloft and going out along the yards to stand on the foot ropes and salute as their ship passes the royal yacht. HMS Juno passing the royal yacht and saluting His Royal Highness the Duke of York. It is a tradition in the square riggers that when saluting, as many as possible of the crew man the yards to show that they are all in sight and not skulking down below and perhaps preparing to man the guns, preparing to shoot instead of salute. Happily, HMS Juno fired her salute with blank ammunition. You can see that these yards are somewhat larger than those of Astrid or Royalist. Windjammers is passing the royal yacht with the Duke of York's standard, the cadets saluting in their own particular way. The first time a cadet goes aloft, it's quite frightening, but the ships spend some time alongside in port in order to train up the crew, and very soon they feel confident up there and are able to work without fear. All the people who go aloft are volunteers. Nobody is ever pressed into going up. If you look to the right of that young man on the spar, you can see there is a double safety harness. He is clipped onto the yard so that if anything should go wrong, he wouldn't have very far to tumble. One of the Milford Haven tugs paying her respects to the Duke of York in her own special manner. Eendracht from Holland passing Thorn Island at the mouth of Milford Haven. And now the ships are beginning to feel the swell of the open sea. Astrid's crew are getting a taste of what it's going to be like for the next 2 or 3 days. 6 meals a day they have, 3 down and 3 up. And let's see something of what is involved in order to get the ships to sea. First of all, the anchor has to be raised. And incidentally, there is one member of the crew down below, flaking down the chain as it comes in. It's a very wet and muddy task, and not the most popular of jobs. It always takes much longer than you'd think to get the whole cable in, and the white marks indicate how much there is to go. Meanwhile, the crew stand by on deck, and they're going to brace the yards. That is, swing the big spars around to the right angle to catch the wind. And they must come round together or there'll be unnecessary strain on the rigging.
Wait, together, just keep in line with the course, alright? Work, together, just keep in line with the course.
Some of the crew have gone aloft, and they are loosing the gaskets on the fore upper topsail, which will allow the sail to drop down so that those on deck can heave on the clewlines and slack away the sheets and buntlines, the various ropes which control the sail and allow it to be set. In the background you can hear the anchor still being hauled in. When they've finished with the ropes, they must be coiled up and secured on the belaying pins. And this is known as sweating. It ensures that the ropes are hauled really tight. The bell signals that the anchor is clear of the bottom. The squaresails are now set, and now they have to sheet in one of the jibs.
Alright, keep one turn on that. Keep one turn on that. Fast leaving, fast leaving. Keep one turn on it. Okay, keep away. 2 6. And again, 2 6. And again. Alright, belay that. Don't lose any. Okay, out of jib now. All away. All away. All away, guys. Jump on it, everybody.
Having set the sail, final adjustment must be made to the rigging. And you can notice here the size of the deck. The ropes lying on deck will be coiled up as the last part of this manoeuvre. Notice how the crew all the time have to work as a team. The wooden pegs there are called belaying pins. Preparations are now being made to set the course, the largest and lowest of the squaresails, and the crew go aloft again, this young man going out over what are known as the futtock shrouds. He has to lean right back in order to go over. He will pass across the foretop, and then he'll go out onto the spar on the leeward side. You always climb up the weather or windward side of the ship. He goes out onto the spar, and as before, he will loosen the gaskets in order that the fore course can be set. They're working there about 35 feet above the deck.
Okay, lay below now! Lay below! Leave it, come down!
While all the sail setting is going on, the captain is making sure that his ship is safe. There are a lot of spectator vessels near him. He's looking calm, but his eyes never stop looking around to make sure that there is no risk of collision. Captain David Norman has a master's ticket in the Merchant Navy and is one of the best young sail training captains. You must remember that many of these boys and girls have only been on board this ship for 2 or 3 days. Although they're gaining confidence and they're good and useful aloft, there is, as you can see, a great number of different ropes to pull, and you have to get them right. That's why there's a certain amount of hesitancy at this stage. But by the time they get to the end of the race, they'll be seasoned mariners. An adjustment now has to be done at the end of the yard, or yardarm as it's called, and so one of the crew works her way out along the foot rope. Now she's standing on what is known as a Flemish horse, a special foot rope at the end of the yard. So Astrid has had a practice run, and she's now snugged down and goes out to sea in a pleasant force 4 breeze to find the starting line, marked by the Royal Yacht Britannia and HMS Juno. Astrid was built in 1918, but by the mid-80s she was a sorry sight. She was rescued by Commander Graham Nielsen and is now able to take her young crew on transatlantic voyages. Another brig, Royalist, pride of the Sea Cadet Corps, sailing out of Milford Haven in a good breeze. What do members of the young volunteer crew feel about going aloft?
All had to go up the mast. The first day we had to all go up the mast, and some people got stuck, and but no, we all managed to get up. But when you're actually going along, it's completely different, and it's really, really scary.
Watch now as a watch leader climbs up the ratlins and again comes to the futtock shrouds, where she has to lean right out backwards. The first time it's very scary, but she's doing it now like a veteran. Up into the foretop and out on the foot ropes, and once again she will loosen the gaskets, allow the sail to flop down, and those on deck will be able to actually set it. On this particular day they had a rather special visitor on board. Tracy Edwards, who skippered Maiden in the Whitbread Round the World race, was experiencing here a very different type of sailing. What's that furry looking stuff? It's called baggy wrinkle and is made from teased out old rope knitted together to act as a pad to stop chafe on the sails. The crew are preparing to raise the yard up the mast because on this conventionally rigged brig some of the yards have to be hoisted up in order to set the sail. Whilst all this is going on, a very professional seagoer gives it the eye. Once the sail is set, various ropes, and in particular the buntlines, the ropes that control the sail when it's being furled, have to be adjusted so that they won't drag the sail out of shape and spoil its driving effect. The girl on top of the yard is a watch leader. This means that she has sailed on a previous occasion, or several occasions, as a crew member, and is now able to act as a leader of the new crew. They all gain from her confidence. Now you can imagine that you yourself are aloft on this brig, on the mainmast, and looking forward to the young people working on the foremast. That's a very confident young lady. Having attended to the squaresails, now there is a staysail to be hoisted, one of the fore and aft sails between the masts. On the foremast, which the crew have just been working on, you can see the forecourse, the foretopsail and fore topgallant. The captain, Josh Garner, is at the wheel with Tracy Edwards.
Right, so we've got all the sails up now?
All that we will for the moment. We've got a main course below the lower yard here on the mainmast, but we won't put that up for now.
Right. What sort of speed do you think we're doing?
To be down about 6-7 knots, I suppose.
Right.
Soldier's wind would do about 8 or 9 now. It's quite a nice wind. Nothing to yours.
What's she like to steer?
Like any yacht, really. As long as it's balanced, it's quite easy. You get weather helm, lee helm, depending, but even a little tweak on the spanker will make a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Don't have a go.
Well,
there you go. Let me know if you find it. I think 210, 200. Pull it back to 200 will do.
It's a bit different to me.
You sat down in Maiden to steer it.
No, they gave me a box.
We do get some that are so small we have to find some arrangement for them. Our littler ones, 13 and a half.
What's the closest she comes to the wind?
Only about 60, so don't pinch it up. I'm afraid it's not a maxi.
There's a boy coming up here on the port side.
Oh, crap.
I don't think I'm going to make it.
No, okay, put her off to port and let's go. Bang her right off. Okay. Frank, can you go 7-7? Yeah, sure. Right. Keep her free a bit, Tracy, and we'll tack in a minute. Right, bracing stations! Stand by to tack! Aye, aye. Braces in hand. Foremost! Brace to starboard, let go and haul!
Nice gentle one this time, lovely. Go, go, go! Okay, once it crosses, don't take a slack out of it, a little bit, take a slack. Go, 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 sheet it in now. Right, make it fast there, make it fast there, make it fast. Release that tack! Okay, Martin, make it fast. I hope so. Right hole in the course shade. Trim it in. Go on, get these braces made fast.
And in these confined waters, it's got to be tacking all the time.
Okay. Starboard 20 then, Tracy. Let her come round. Helm the lee! Mainmast! Brace to starboard, let go and haul! Change the staysail, ease the staysail sheet, change it over. Staysail sheet, change it over. Foremost! Brace to starboard, let go and haul! Well done, Katie. Make it fast before it slips. Square her up on whatever it is.
Good heave.
Is that your first time in a square rigger, is it?
Yep.
We can do it in square rig, you see.
She's getting used to different response
Yeah.
time.
Oh, it's very slow, but it's very irrevocable. Once
Yeah.
you've started it, you know, you're a bit stuck with it then.
Nice and heavy.
Yeah. It's a very comfortable little ship, really. We don't have. It's surprising, even in quite bad weather, we don't get thrown about too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Haul taut and belay. Sure.
Now the ships are making their way to the starting area. Royalist has completed her tack Malcolm Miller is being passed by one of the French schooners, Belle Poule, and following them is the large modern Dutch schooner Eendracht, which was built in 1989. She is 606 tons and has a crew of 54 people. The man in the bows will give you some idea of her size. She is very luxurious below, perhaps too much for the ardent sail trainer. She replaces a smaller schooner of the same name, which is now in German ownership and called the Jan Schmidt. Like the STA schooners, these young people come from all walks of life and are not necessarily going to follow a career at sea. Lord Nelson is a brigantine with a special purpose, in that she takes disabled people among her crew, and she has a number of special items of equipment, such as this lift. The captain of Lord Nelson is John Fisher.
We have lifts between all the decks, clear, uncluttered decks with no raised poop or anything, so that wheelchairs can have full access to every part of the ship. And on the bridge here, for instance, we have an audio compass, so the blind can steer by sound.
50% of the crew are disabled and the other half able-bodied.
I mean, I actually work with the disabled, but I think particularly for people who maybe never come in contact with them, it's a great experience for them as well as for the disabled people.
Do you find that they're very determined?
Very. Oh yes, yeah. I mean, the one rule on board ship is that you don't help, you know, unless they really want you to, and they don't usually want you to, you know, they get on with the job and they do it.
Spectators at the start of these races come in many forms, and here we have some intrepid rowers. Maybe they're going to need that bilge pump. Fidelius is a Pembrokeshire longboat based at Abercastle, a tiny port just north of here. Mr. and Mrs. Norman Sharp, who own her, frequently race the gig very successfully. He's the coxswain, while his wife Marianne is rowing in the bow. The crews of these ships are both amateur and professional, and here we see a Navy crew from the Polish ship Iskra saluting in a highly organized Navy fashion. Iskra is a medium-sized training ship, considerably larger than Astrid or Royalist, which we have just been seeing, but of course not as big as the giant Darmojeji. This is Malcolm Miller, and at the stern they're setting the very large mizzen, whilst in the forepart of the ship they're setting the foresail. This is an all-girl crew, but when you realise that her sister ship, the Sir Winston Churchill, has boys in her crew, you can imagine there'll be some fierce competition between the two ships. The girls are now heaving on the peak and throat halyards in order to set the foresail, and you can see the girl in the red anorak marking the fact that she's a watch leader. They'll be using the traditional cry of 2-6 heave, 2-6 heave, derived from the number 2 and number 6 of the old gun crews, who had to heave their gun back after it had fired. There's quite a lot of motion on this ship now, and the youngsters will be rapidly gaining their sea legs, or joining the Lee Rail Club. Perhaps I should remind you that most of these young crews have only been on board a short while. One of the race organisers, Hugh Marriott.
It's easy to forget that, because what happens is that we see them. They climb the mast, they man the yards, and it's easy for somebody standing on the shore to think, oh well, that's the crew of that ship and they've done it before. Sometimes they only boarded a few hours before, and one of the first things they do is climb the masts, and it's a major thing that they're doing there.
And they do come from different backgrounds.
Yes, they do. It depends. You see, on some of the big ones, they're perhaps learning to be seamen. On the big Eastern Bloc ships, they are perhaps learning to be merchant navy officers or trawler skippers, that sort of thing. But on the smaller ones, maybe they're just ordinary kids who've saved up to do this, and they've worked as with their babysitting or working behind bars or doing paper rounds, that kind of thing. In some cases, they couldn't even do that, and perhaps the local community has got together and scrubbed up some money for them to do it. But they are all backgrounds. Probably in this fleet you can probably find a public school boy from Eton. You may even find somebody who's been in trouble and who's come here through the courts or something like that. But whatever it is, they come from all different backgrounds.
Now we're going to show you a taste of life on board the largest ship on this 1991 race, Windjammers from Poland. She too has left the harbour, and the 220 cadets are now beginning to set sail. Remember the size of the deck on the smaller vessels? Somewhat different here. And the gear is very much heavier and needs many, many more people on each rope. They're standing by now to brace the yards, and they can run with the rope. The captain, Tadeusz Oleknovich, checks his ship is safe, and he will check the 25,000 square feet of sail area. How did these tall ships races start for the Russians and the Poles?
The Polish started to take part in the Sail Training Association races in '72. The first Russian entry was in '74. They sent two big square riggers. It was Krusenstern and Tovarishch. They are still in commission and they are still sailing. But then the Russians were, of course, very tight, and they couldn't. They were not free, simply. Yes, it was the old regime which didn't permit them to mix with the Western people and so on. I started to put my heart into my work, and slowly, year by year, the Russians started to come more and more. The result is that when Perestroika opened the doors, not completely, but quite wide, so they started to come, because for them it was the only opportunity of being with us, to being with the West without paying enormous sum of the money and so on. And ever since they started to come to the STA races, they started to build the new square riggers. And I don't know if you realize that Russia has got now 7 or 8 big square riggers, the largest amount of the square riggers in one country in the world.
Sail training is an adventurous activity, but provided the rules are obeyed, then there are few if any accidents. However, the ships are all checked before the start of the race to make sure that they are carrying the recommended equipment. Whenever you go to sea, there is always the chance that it will be rough. But as with any challenge, it's good to talk about it afterwards.
When I came off the watch, when it was really bad, like, and you go down below, it's a lot better up here, but when you go down below and the smell of the food and that lot, and you're going like this, and I got into the kitchen and I said to her, I'm going to throw up. And I found this sink, and they're all saying, you don't want to throw up, and it's coming out, you know, but I won't say that on TV. So it was pretty rough. Yeah. But like then we all had to come up through the galley and not through here, because this is where we go down here.
The foredeck was out of bounds because the waves were coming over, and if you came on here, I mean, the state we were in, we'd have been straight over, and we wouldn't have stood a chance out there, because the way you could see hardly anything.
When the boat tilted to that side, like the boat comes
Yeah,
over that
the
way.
water was coming up fast.
No, but the water, like the wave came right over like this and it just hit here. Right.
Yeah, I mean, this was all...
Pretty bad really, considering we've never sailed
drenched.
before.
The ships are now sailing in the starting area, and their line is marked by the Royal Yacht at one end and the frigate HMS Juno at the other. And we're looking at the larger Class A ships jockeying about to get the best position for their start. Darmagegi is showing an unusual sight in that her mizzen royal is goose-winged. One side of it still clewed up, and that was the original term for goose-winging, although nowadays yachtsmen use it to indicate that their sails are set on different sides of the yacht. One must always remember that this is very much an international event, and vessels from as many as 20 different nations can take part in any year. These flags don't spell out any message, just good luck to everyone. A white flare signalling the start for Class A. And here is the Norwegian Colin Archer, which was one of the rescue ships, or lifeboats, which in the old days would sail up to the north with the fishing fleet. The RS on her sail, standing for rescue ship. The girls in the Malcolm Miller have got all their sails set now, and the ship also is manoeuvring, ready to take its start. They're having a certain amount of trouble here with a tween-mast staysail, or tweenie. It has to be threadled up through the rigging, right up to the top of the ship. And that's how she looks once every sail is set, other than the square sails, because she's beating to windward. Pride of Galway in Class C, also sailing to get the best position for her start. One of the French schooners, Bellepoule. Now that she is out at sea, she's about to set a French ensign at the top of the mast, which, in addition to the pilot jack at the bow, is the equivalent of being dressed overall when underway. We saw Royalist setting her sails, and here she is out now at sea, feeling the swell a bit. You would have noticed that the fleet all seem to be going in different directions, and this is because they cannot sail into the wind, so have to zigzag or tack towards their destination if it lies upwind of them. There is the lifeboat from Angle, a small village at the mouth of the haven, out partly for business and partly for pleasure. In the foreground now, the Lord Nelson, with behind her the Malcolm Miller. It's very nearly time for the start of Class A, and the ships are homing in on the starting line. The starting flare has been fired, and Darmagegi is actually crossing the line, starting her race to Cork in Southern Ireland. 270 miles to go, including the famous Fastnet Rock. smaller sail training yachts are in Class C, and their start is half an hour after Class A. And here is a group of them, again manoeuvring so that if possible they get the very best position on the starting line. Meanwhile, Darmozheji, who has started the race, soon finds that she has to tack. And the bow is being brought up into the wind. You can see the 5 headsails are lifting and flogging and flapping as she begins to pass through the eye of the wind. Some of the sails have been clewed up, the forecourse has been hoisted up, and some of the staysails between the masts have been dropped in order to help this manoeuvre. There's a lot of work for the 220 young cadets of her crew. You will see that the yards on the foremast have been backed, been held into the direction of the wind to help the bow swing round. Upwind of Darmozheji is the much smaller Asgard, sailing on. She doesn't have to tack yet. Asgard is the second ship of that name used for Irish sail training. The first was the yacht of Erskine Childers, of Riddle of the Sands fame. This one was built in 1981. She's 108 foot long, plus the bowsprit, and carries a total crew of 27. She's a well-travelled lady, having already been shipped down to take part in the Australian Bicentennial Tall Ships programme. Darmozheji has now completed the tack and is striding out towards the finishing line, reaching it in perhaps 2 to 2.5 days' time. It was Asgard that was the proud winner of the coveted Cutty Sark Trophy in the 1991 races. Similar in size to the Irish Asgard is the Polish brigantine Henryk Rutowski. This brigantine was built in Poland in 1944. She's 99 foot long plus her bowsprit and carries 17 young crew with 5 experienced ones. You may notice that she has an engine running. This will be her generator, which many of these sailing ships now have to run for quite long periods in order to service the many electric and electronic navigational devices on board. She hasn't set her main course yet. That is the sail on the foremast below the 2 brown squaresails. The PZ on her mainsail shows that she's a member of the Polish Yachting Association. A beautiful sight there. Our old friend Darmozheji, the full-rigged ship from Poland with the white hull, being followed by the 3-masted barkentine Lord Nelson, a British ship which is specially adapted to take disabled people, and both setting virtually full sail in this force 3 breeze. Another barkentine, this time the 3-masted Iskra from Poland. And if we look at her foremast, starting at the deck, we see the forecourse, the 4 lower topsail, 4 upper topsail, 4 topgallant, and at the very top the 4 royal. Then we have between the masts, starting again from the bottom, the main staysail, the main topmast staysail, and the main topgallant staysail. Behind the triangular sails there is the mainsail, and finally at the aft end of the ship the mizzen. Iskra now appears to be overtaking Malcolm Miller, perhaps because of the Miller's older sails, which have been handled by a large number of learner crews. Now, back on Astrid, having crossed the starting line, she's settling down to the race. Each sail being adjusted carefully to give them maximum speed. And life on board should now be settling down into a routine. However, life is not always so easy, and on her way to join the race, Astrid experienced quite heavy conditions in the English Channel. To starboard, the Portland Lighthouse on a dark and stormy night. Three of the crew seem a bit apprehensive, and not without reason, because it's a good gale force 8. A shot that couldn't be faked, the wind gusting 38 knots. Despite the conditions, the ship still seems to be quite steady, and the crew are getting on with their jobs. The captain, David Norman, although alert, doesn't seem overly concerned. Back to the race, and one of the two French schooners, Etoile, also settles down to this 2.5-day race, over to Southern Ireland and the port of Cork. Royalist flies flag A and numeral pennant 2 to show that she's in Class A Division 2. Earlier we saw her crew setting sail, but now just the duty watch remains in the aft part of the ship, ready to carry out any manoeuvres or sail drills which might be needed. Dama Gergi, which has just completed her tack, invites an interesting comment from round-the-world yachtswoman Tracy Edwards, whose yacht Maiden would have accomplished the manoeuvre in a matter of seconds.
Well, as you can see on the Dama Gergi, me and the boys are taking a bit of a break after the last tack. It may surprise some of you dinghy sailors to know, but the last tack took 7 minutes. Quite a lot of very strenuous work, a lot of rushing around. Some of the sails actually had to be taken down while they tacked this boat. As there's not very much wind at the moment, we actually did a bit of a stall halfway through the tack, and it was a little bit difficult to get around. So you can see this has probably put us in last place at the moment, which isn't too good, but after we've had a bit of a break, we'll be trying to catch up.
How did this beautiful ship come to be built? Janka Bilak.
Poland, in a very difficult time, built another square rigger as Dar Młodzieży, which was designed by architect Horeń, and she was built in the record time, because this it was already during the martial law in Poland, and it happened that the people wanted to have the square rigger, and the will of the people, the will of the worker on the docks and so on, shipyards, build this ship. And so she was built for under 1 year.
It is interesting to compare the sizes of the different ships. Look at one figure there standing halfway down the deck. Compare that with Astrid and Royalist, which we saw earlier on. A good example of a huge sailing ship going well, sails well trimmed, 3 masts, each carrying 5 yards, the tallest 172 feet above the water, and setting, would you believe, nearly an acre of canvas. As this great sailing ship proceeds on the race, the captain, Tadeusz Oleknowicz, a master mariner and captain of this Dar's predecessor, the well-known white frigate as she was called, Dar Pomosa. There's a man with a lot on his mind. What course is she sailing? What is the wind direction? How will the wind direction change? Although he stands there seemingly not doing very much, there's a lot of thoughts going through his mind. There are 76 sail training ships in this racing fleet from many different nations. The crews all come from different backgrounds. So what do they feel about life on board a schooner?
It's brilliant. The friendships that we've built so far are really brilliant. We do all the jobs. You know, we have like a rota system, so we can work in the galley, we can be boatswain's mate, anything. But we also have close tacking stations. That'll be during the race. And I'm doing something really simple. I'm just pulling on the trisync line.
The school sends 1 girl and 1 boy, one onto the Malcolm Miller, the boy onto the Sir Winston Churchill, and it's sponsored by the Pipe Makers Company.
Right. So are you enjoying working with an all-female crew?
I am. It's really good fun. You find that you build up really good friendships with the other girls, working with them all the time.
Are you surprised about that?
I'm surprised at how friendly everyone is, yes, because I wasn't sure how easy it was going to be.
If you were to get the chance to sail in one of these ships, you'd experience a tough time, but a very enjoyable one. You would almost certainly step ashore having learnt a lot about yourself and have built up a store of memories. As Lord Burnham, chairman of the Sail Training Association, once said, "We are in business to provide memories." And so the ships are racing to their next port. The crowds have bade them farewell, having had the opportunity to see some stirring sights. And what you have been seeing are sights that can be seen every year in all parts of the world. But the Sail Training Association organises their races with a hidden aim, namely to enable young people from many different nations to race together at sea under sail, and subsequently to meet each other, to swap experiences, and to go away in friendship. And should you want to be one of the young crews of these vessels taking part in the Katisak Tall Ships race, how would you do it? Well, there's an association, the Association of Sea Training Organisations, or ASTO, which you can contact through the Royal Yachting Association at Eastleigh, Hampshire, in Britain. Because the races are for young people, there are a number of curious factors involved. For example, the time limit. The ports always arrange a complex programme, and it's essential that the ships are there in time. So a vessel that has not crossed the finishing line by the time of the time limit is still counted in the results and can even win a prize. Incidentally, the premier prize is not for winning the race, but for the crew which, by the vote of all the captains, has done the most for international cooperation. The first race was held in 1956, when a London solicitor, Bernard Morgan, felt that to hold such an event would bring together the last of the world's windjammers, which could easily at that stage have faced extinction. They have been organised yearly ever since, enabling more than 750,000 young people to experience them. The last of the windjammers? There are now more than 60 in commission, more than there were in 1956. This picture of a square rigger sailing out of the dock at Milford Haven might never have been seen again, but for that foresight and for the subsequent races.